Imagine voluntarily digging your own grave while 80,000 enemies watch from fortress walls and 250,000 more march towards you with orders to butcher every last Roman. 52b. C. Julius Caesar made a decision that defied every law of military logic and sanity. He ordered 50,000 Roman legionaries to build walls that would trap them between 380,000 Gauls, who wanted nothing more than to skin Romans alive and hang their heads from trees as trophies. Think about those numbers for one brutal second. 50,000 Romans deliberately sealing themselves between two massive armies with zero escape routes. Zero possibility of retreat. Just fortifications they built with their own bleeding hands to create the perfect killing ground where they'd either slaughter their way to immortality or die screaming between walls that became their tomb. The fate of Western civilization. Everything you know about European culture, language, and law hung on one general's insane gamble that engineering and discipline could overcome mathematics that said his entire army should be annihilated. How do you feed 50,000 men while they're simultaneously building two massive walls and fighting off constant attacks? What engineering secret transformed lily pits into mass graves that swallowed thousands? Why would any commander cut off his own retreat route? How did Caesar know Vercingetorix would surrender before Romans starved? What personal desperation drove Caesar to risk literally everything at this hilltop fortress in Gaul? The answers lie in the most savage siege in ancient warfare, where genius met desperation and created an empire. Gaul in 52 B.C. was a powder keg soaked in blood and ready to explode in Caesar's face. For 6 years, he'd been conquering tribe after tribe, slaughtering warriors, enslaving populations, destroying cultures. But conquest isn't control, and the Gallic tribes had reached their breaking point. Enter Vercingetorix. The name means Great Warrior King, and this wasn't just another tribal chief wearing animal skins. The Arvernian prince had done something no Gallic leader had managed in living memory. He united 40 tribes that had been murdering each other for generations. Ancient blood feuds put aside. Territorial disputes forgotten. Different languages. Different gods. Different ways of war, all unified by one burning hatred. Rome must die. Caesar's situation was more desperate than anyone realized. 6 years of victory meant nothing if he couldn't hold Gaul. Back in Rome, political enemies were sharpening knives with his name on them. The moment he showed weakness, the instant he failed, they'd strip him of command. Without his legions, without his victories buying political protection, Caesar faced exile or assassination. This wasn't about glory or conquest anymore. This was pure survival. The Gallic Confederation represented unprecedented danger. Warriors from the Atlantic to the Rhine. From Mediterranean shores to the English Channel, we're talking about maybe 300,000 fighting men who could be called to arms. For the first time in history, Gaul spoke with one voice, and that voice screamed for Roman blood flowing in rivers. When Caesar's scouts reported that Vercingetorix had gathered 80,000 of his best warriors behind Alesia's walls, any rational commander would have looked for easier targets. The fortress sat on a plateau surrounded by rivers and valleys that made assault mathematically impossible. Natural defenses gave defenders every conceivable advantage. Attacking uphill against prepared positions was suicide. Yet Caesar saw something others missed, something that would either prove his genius or become his epitaph. Vercingetorix had made Alesia his stronghold. Thinking those massive walls and elevated position made him untouchable, that overconfidence would cost 20,000 Gallic lives. Caesar commanded 10 legions, approximately 50,000 of Rome's finest professional killers. Not conscripts or militia, but veterans who'd been turning Gaul into a Roman graveyard for 6 years. Each carried the gladius for close quarters butchery, the pilum designed to punch through shields and flesh, the scutum that could form walls nothing could penetrate. But here's the part that reveals Caesar's ruthless pragmatism. He also commanded 10,000 Germanic cavalry. These weren't civilized Romans, these were barbarian mercenaries from beyond the Rhine. Warriors who collected scalps and fought half-naked. Men. Rome had been fighting just years before. Now they rode alongside legionaries for Roman gold. That's the kind of calculated brutality that made Caesar terrifying. His inner circle reads like a who's who of Roman history and tragedy. Labienus. His tactical genius, second in command. Mark Antony. Young and hungry to prove himself in independent command. And strangest of all, Marcus Brutus, fighting loyally beside the man whose assassination he'd orchestrate years later, inside Alesia. Vercingetorix commanded 80,000 Gallic warriors from 40 tribes, each with different equipment, different fighting styles, different levels of discipline. Noble cavalry in mail armor fought alongside berserkers who'd charged naked into Roman steel. Then, Vercingetorix sent messengers to every corner of Gaul with a call that would echo through history. The greatest hosting in Gallic history was summoned. Every tribe that could send warriors was ordered to march to Alesia's relief. The Confederation demanded 250,000 men. Incredibly, impossibly, the tribes answered. 40 tribes, from Aquitania to Belgica, sent their warriors marching. This wasn't just an army. This was a nation mobilizing for total war. But Vercingetorix had made one catastrophic miscalculation. He'd brought too many warriors into Alesia. 80,000 men consumed supplies at rates that defy comprehension. Every day meant hundreds of cattle slaughtered, tons of grain devoured, thousands of gallons of water needed. Warriors eat more than farmers. Combat requires calories. The fortress he'd chosen for its strength was already becoming a trap. Then Caesar gave an order that made his own generals think he'd lost his mind. Instead of assaulting Alesia, instead of starving them out from safe distance, he ordered something unprecedented in warfare. His legions would build walls, not siege works at safe distance, but complete encirclement of the entire plateau. 11 miles of fortifications trapping Vercingetorix inside like a wolf in a cage. His engineers began the circumvallation, the inner wall facing Alesia. 2 ditches each, 15 feet wide and deep. The inner one flooded where possible, creating a moat. Behind these rows, the rampart proper, 12 feet high, topped with battlements and towers every 80 feet. That's approximately 350 towers along 11 miles. But here's where Caesar's plan went from ambitious to insane. Scouts reported the relief army was massive. Conservative estimates said 250,000 warriors. Some reports claimed 300,000. Caesar faced a choice: abandon the siege or do something no commander in history had attempted. Caesar chose madness. He ordered construction of a second line of fortifications, the contravallation facing outward. His army would build another wall 14 miles long, turning their position into a fortress within a fortress, trapping themselves between Alesia and the approaching relief army. The engineering details border on obsessive genius designed for industrial-scale killing. Beyond ditches and ramparts, Caesar ordered obstacles that would transform charging warriors into screaming corpses. The gravestones, Sippi, were logs with sharpened branches projecting outward at eye level. Charging cavalry would impale themselves and their horses. Running infantry would be skewered like meat,